And welcome to another edition of the Wake Up Late with Dougie show. I'm your host, Dougie Almeida. Almost forgot what to say. It's been a couple weeks since we had the show. We're just glad that our member of the family here on the Wake Up Late with Dougie show, Ben, our producer, is okay because I think he did an impression of Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, and the whole studio went flying through the air through Southwest Florida. But Ben, we're all right, right? Good. Thanks, man. And welcome to the show. We got a great show for you today. We got a new segment too. Listen, who's going to care? We're going to just try to make this show flow. And what I want to do when I'm on the show, the great guests we have, the great friends and people in comedy and all that shit. Let's just make it simple, right? So we got some new segments. Let me ask you. And of course, let's associate. Everybody needs to know each other. Everybody got, how do we get along? Well, let's figure out if we have anything in common. And lastly, did you hear shit that's happened that you had to have heard? So without further ado, let's bring on today's guest, the very lovely and talented, very funny Miss Monique Marvez. What's up, Monique?
Hey, how are you, Dougie?
I'm
well. I'm in South Florida, but everything's fine. I'm in Fort Lauderdale area, so all the trees are intact and everything appears to be a-okay.
Now you are a Florida woman,
mm-hmm.
right? Originally from Miami area, right?
Born and raised.
See, not many native Floridians.
I used to think there were very few, that most everybody came over on a raft or drove down I-95.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact that there were actual, you can see I'm in my cousin's guest room and her kids got like all this Star Wars stuff around me. It's kind of cool.
Stop lying, it's yours. You like Star Wars.
Yeah, I'm here. But I didn't think there were any actual natal wards in South Florida. Other than the one I came out of in Baptist Hospital. I thought they pretty much just treated gunshot wounds. But no, there's plenty of people that were born and raised here.
By the hand of God. That's awesome. Yeah, I can move from New York to Florida when I was like 4 or 5 years old. So it's there, but it's crazy. So it's good. We haven't done a show in a while. I was going to say, when it's been like, what's in the most recent, what's the longest time you went without doing stand-up? Like how many days did you go without doing stand-up in the last month or two?
In the last month or two, I don't think I've gone more than 3 days. Like but pretty much since lockdown ended, I could work all day, every day.
Yeah.
I could do Zoom shows in the day and shows at night. Yeah. I've been super busy.
That's awesome because I haven't done the podcast in a little while, so I feel like I'm out of sync. What do I say?
I understand.
You know what I mean? And I'm so excited because you're on the show, and you have a radio background. You were a voice in Miami.
I used to be a guest on radio in Miami. I never had a show down here. My shows I had 2 in California and 1 in Indianapolis.
I love radio, just the whole thing of it, having the cans on your head and just putting it. Just to me, it's always, that's why I've done this, and I never made a cent at it. I actually started thinking about how much money I've spent in it, and I'm like, oh my God, I hope my wife doesn't find out. And
I get that.
That number is going to go right next to the number I have about how much money I spent in a strip club one year. It's going to go down with me.
What's really good, if you put them side by side, she's going to be totally okay with whatever you spend on the podcast versus the strip club. Like whatever this costs, it's better.
It's a lot better than a few years ago. You're right. It's either that or buy a boat.
Don't buy a boat.
So yeah, no, don't buy a boat.
Ever.
The expression, the 2 favorite days of a boat owner.
I absolutely do, because my dad had a boat, my uncle had a boat, my cousin had a boat, and my best friend had a boat.
Is that your dogs?
They all lost money. Huh?
Is that your dogs or mine?
That might be here. We have a border collie named Rocky.
Oh, I love border collies. A great athletic dog.
He's fabulous.
Yeah. Well, I have my daughter's dog here, my mother-in-law's dog here in the house. And I think those dogs just heard our dogs through the magic of radio.
Actually, here's what's funny. Rocky does bark at things he hears on radio, and if you're watching TV and there's any sort of animals to be herded, even just a sheep, if he hears like a little bleating sound, like it's unbelievable how aware he is of animals on television.
Well, the other while we're on this subject, my daughter's dog, little poodle, cute dog. We always have the ring thing. So when something goes by the ring camera, the dog comes running to my office right to the front of the house, barking and yapping. I'm like, "Thank you, Ring," and the Shark Tank. All right, let me get to some of the things. Let me ask you. We're going to start the segment of
Sure.
our show called
I'm going to
"Let
put the
Me Ask
shade down
You."
a little because the sun is setting, and I want you to be able to see me.
Well, there you go. That Florida sun, by the way.
Crazy.
Let me ask you, Monique Marvez, what is your favorite time of year?
At this time,
Yeah, the fall.
September 23rd is my birthday, and it's also the autumnal equinox. So I know that we're 3 months away from Christmas. The days are going to get shorter. I love Halloween. I love this time of year.
Hmm. Halloween candy. I went to the chiropractor today, and he had like Reese's and Kit Kats right there when you come up. I kept having to go up to the lady, ask more questions.
Full
I'm
size
just
or
kidding.
minis?
No, they're little mini ones. That was the only reason it was acceptable, I guess. Um, what is the top three things you want in a man or a woman? Hey, I think I
It's a
know you.
man for
Yeah,
me. It's a
yeah,
man.
yeah.
I'm
I
not
just
gender fluid. I am
yeah,
hardened in Wienerland. It's a man.
yeah.
Um, these are going to sound like very weird things. I want him to be able to comfortably dance slow, just the two of us in the living room alone. Like if a
Hmm.
man feels awkward dancing slow, let's just say to the Wichita Lineman by Glenn Campbell, then intimacy is going to be like an issue. So he's got to pass the dance slow test.
So do
Number
you,
two,
mhm.
he has to very much be sort of a pleasure seeker, someone who enjoys good food, enjoys travel, not a kind of person who does it just because it's expected, but someone who genuinely enjoys the sensual
Yeah,
pleasures of life. And number three, honest.
yeah. Being honest, you know. And number three is one of the hardest. I mean, you know what I mean. There's levels of honesty, though, right? I mean, let's think about it. Like,
No,
I like to think. Well, no, I'm not saying I'm not saying acceptably, but that's the problem. Some people think it's okay if there's a reason that they did something.
no,
It seems like we're in a time and era where people think if they just had a reason for doing something, it's justifiable and no longer
mm-mm.
looked at as something that's the first step to chaos in society. So yeah, I agree. Being honest is a good thing. Um, what is the worst gift you ever got?
Oh, that's so hard because, to me, gifts are about intention. So I always used to get, you get weird gifts from old ladies. Like my great grandma used to give me weird stuff, but it was given with love. So I don't want to say those are bad gifts,
Hmm.
because old ladies just give weird gifts the older they get. So, um,
So, so you're.
I think the worst, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say. So your answer is any gift. The worst gift you ever got is from any old lady. That just makes it
No, no,
simple.
no. No, I was saying, even though they were technically on paper bad
Yeah.
gifts, they were given with love. What
Yes.
my third husband used to buy me presents with my own money. I think those are very bad gifts.
That's the worst one. Yeah, when you pay for
Yeah,
them.
those suck. I got a lot of
Yeah.
those.
I just remember again part of this whole thing. We're going to play association after this. It's like it's just the idea. The minute you said that, I was reminded of a buddy of mine who wanted to get married so bad. He ended up buying his wife an engagement ring, and several years into it, she found out that it was a cubic zirconian, and you know, and it
Bad.
and but here this no, you don't even know half the story. So here's the problem. He he asked for cash from her to pay for it because not her get and the cash was well above the actual value of that fucking ring. Anyway,
Wow.
so yeah.
Never
By the way,
good.
the marriage didn't last. It was over, I think, after that.
Surprise.
Yep. Um, what is by the way, I think the worst gift I ever got was herpes. No, I'm like kidding.
I
What
don't
is
know that that's
what a
technically a gift. I think that's more of a gift with purchase.
yeah, with a
It's the little
it keeps
extra when you
giving.
got something else.
Yeah. Yeah. Because then they usually comes with something. There's a bundle.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
usually a bundle.
Yeah, like when you
Um,
buy the makeup and they give you the basket, only this was boils.
Yeah, thanks. Oh God! Now, wait a minute. Now we got new associations. I'm getting visions of stuff I can't share. We
Sorry.
can't go into something like that,
No.
and not still be on the Disney Channel. Is there is there one is there was one thing about comedy you'd like to change? What would it be?
I don't know because I think it's such an arduous and challenging journey, but it's different for every single person. Like the things that were hard for me may not have been hard for you. And I think that because the journey is kind of meeting the challenges of the journey is kind of the good part in a weird way. I
Yeah,
don't know that I'd want to truncate any of the things that were really, really hard because I think it's what made me good.
necessary. Yeah. It's interesting like that, right? Like every job has its grungies. I just read the quote
Yeah.
from the great movie The League of Their Own, where it says it's the hard that makes it great. Tom
Yeah.
Hanks's line. Uh, and it's true. And it goes into something else where there's a lot of folks that want that type of recognition for that achievement. They see the accomplishment, the proficiency in other people, and they think it's easy to get. They think all it takes is think it, or just Google it, or they don't get that there's a long road to it.
Well, my
And where we're
dad,
going
who
in this.
was a genius, my dad used to always say, excellence is its own reward. And when you get someplace and you've done your level best and you get the reward yourself, whether it's applause or a great booking or a relationship with somebody you really wanted in the business, it takes it to another level. But when you're firing on all your pistons, that's a pretty exciting thing. And comedy forces you to do that.
Yeah, yeah. And like in anything, though, the more you really delve into it and you're honest and you're really getting involved in it and doing what you want to do and not, it's like, people say to me, "What about cruise ship comedy?" I just don't want to do it. It's just not my thing. I have a few,
Well, there's
but
really no
but I
such
do.
thing as cruise ship comedy. There's a comedian on a cruise ship. I don't do cruise ship comedy, but I do cruises. I
Yeah,
do what I do
yeah.
on HBO on a cruise. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, no, no. Yeah, I get it. I just being away. To me, it's a bit unplugged type thing for me. Any rate, but 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 it's a great gig. I mean, it's great. In a sense. But I didn't. I'm actually looking at something now where I thought I'd never do, which is colleges, which is doing seminars on investment planning, but with a little
That's
humor. So
that's very cool.
yeah. So it's actually the funny fiduciary laughing your way to the bank and financial independence. Coming to a college near you, everybody.
I
Um,
like that.
what was what is your top one or two most favorite moments in comedy?
Oh, that's anytime I've taped something for Showtime, or when I taped for HBO Max, like those are great moments. But I think my top moment in comedy was when I met Lily Tomlin, and
Wow.
we were at a social engagement, and I was chatting, and I was excusing myself because I had to go do my radio show on KFI in Los Angeles, and I said, I'm so sorry, but I have to go do a show. And she said, oh, you're a performer? I said, well, I'm a stand-up, but tonight I'm doing radio. And because I did it once a week, it was a wrap-up of the week on KFI. And she said, what is your name? And I said, Monique Marvez. And she said, oh, I listen to you every Saturday night. You're a genius. I love you. Lily Tomlin.
How great.
It was
Wow.
amazing.
You know what I mean? Wow.
I
Yeah.
cried. I cried. I have pictures of me crying and Lily Tomlin comforting me, saying, I didn't mean to make you cry. Well, of
Oh
course. What
my
did you think was
goodness.
going to happen?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that
That's
was
awesome.
that's the tippy. Was meeting her and finding out she liked my work. Like that was stunning. And I
Absolutely.
think this wasn't this is just something that just came to mind. Um, I got an email not long ago from Esty Adorum. Now, if you don't know who that is, she's the woman who books the Comedy Cellar in New York. She's
Mhm.
the grand dame of comedy. There's an entire show called Crashing, where the whole show, all Pete Holm is trying to do is get Esty Adorum to let him get on stage. I didn't know that because I don't watch the show, but somebody told me.
That was great.
And
Yeah, I liked it.
she asked me for my avails because I play the
Oh,
cellar in New York and the one in Vegas, and And I answered, and she answered, and I just put it out there. I said, "You're always so kind to me, and you give me so many dates. Why?" And she answered back, "Because I love you." And that,
Mhm.
was like, you know,
Oh,
huge.
hold on a second.
Thank you.
I'm serious
Yeah, I mean, this
because
woman is like the godmother of
yeah,
comedy.
it, it
She's the grand poobah.
you know, it's there's so many levels of it. That's acceptance. That's like arrival. And then not only to be there, but to have like then again them say to you, "Hey, I've seen you. I know you've moved me." And you're like, "Oh my god!" When anybody who's like of that, it's just a great feeling,
It's
and the
amazing.
excitement of it, and the excitement of it, and I mean, I that as a comic, that to me, as this moment, every time I get a gig, every time, like recently in the last few months, there's a few people that said, "Hey, to headline," which is good, to go across country and do stuff on this date, and I'm like, yeah, and I'm stupid because
Congrats.
I don't even care how much it is. I'm like, whatever. I'm ready to go. So, well, that's
You
awesome.
don't
Great.
get
I mean,
into
look,
this business for the cash. I mean,
no,
you can make a good living. I've been blessed, truly blessed, but that's not, if that's why you're doing it, you're going to be unhappy for a very long time.
let me do this. Let me ask you this because that's important. A lot of times I think if young comics are watching this show, and there's a lot that do, that's an understanding that I want you to just elaborate a little more on because, like I would basically, I teach this in my mind. I say, look, I toured the country for 5, 6, 7 years as a feature, barely making any money. But, to me, it wasn't the money I was making as long as it was trying to cover my expenses. But it was all about the time. It was all
And
about
the
the
adventure, it's an
experience.
adventure. Who gets
Yeah.
to do that?
Yeah. So save your money up, kids. But what, add to that, just say, this is what it's about. It's about putting the time in.
Amen.
Okay. This is going to be fun. Now, in psychology, they have that thing like word association. I say
Free
big, you say,
association. It's a Freudian
yeah,
concept, free association.
exactly,
Yes.
exactly. But I love the idea of association, and to me, that's like I said, like sometimes somebody will say something and it'll make me picture something. And if you never recognize that in somebody, you ever been in a conversation where somebody's talking about barbecue sauce and you can see somebody just sitting there not really paying attention, and then one little word like garlic, the person goes, it's like it's a whole bell rang off in that person's head, and there was visions and all kinds of things. So let's associate. Basically, is us playing that game. It's one word or a phrase, and some simple, silly ones. We're not going to like try to corner anybody into a political. No, we're not going to do that stuff. All right. So,
No.
all right. Our first word, Monique Marvez, is honorable.
Honorable. Atticus Finch.
Hmm.
The main character in To Kill a Mockingbird. He was an honorable man in every sense of the word.
And that book's been banned by certain parts of the states.
Idiots.
Yeah.
Fat
Um,
cats
uh,
like mongrels.
movie star.
Betty Davis.
Hmm. Wow. See, you
She
say that I
wasn't a
can almost.
sex symbol like Marilyn Monroe. Betty Davis was an actress and a performer and a movie star. Meryl Streep is a much better actress, perhaps, but she's not a movie star. Betty Davis was a movie star.
And anybody who, the minute you mentioned her name, I heard her voice.
It's an intangible
Distinguished.
quality. It's a
Yeah.
something you can't put your finger on.
Yeah. When she spoke, it's almost like different, but a James Earl Jonesy, kind of,
Yes,
you
yes.
know what I mean? Like a distinctive, like,
You know.
yeah. Great, great call on that one. Controversial.
Politics.
Yeah.
Right now, people can't have a civil conversation about politics. They just can't even have a civil, you tell me what you think, I'll tell you what I think conversation. They get whacked.
Yeah. It was interesting. Obama was quoted on a interview the other day about how he basically said, the Democrats need to lighten up, kind of thing. He says nobody wants to go through life walking on eggshells.
No.
If you have to walk out and introduce yourself to the day worrying about what 10 billion people think and why they're thinking it, and how I got to relate to it, it's over, folks.
No, well, one of the hardest laughs I get every night wherever I am is that I say a couple of things. I say, number one, I was born before allergies. I just had puffy times, not puffy times. And I just kind of lace into all these like peanut and celiac and all that BS. And then once I see I've got the audience like a little bit in a twist, I go, oh, and another thing, cancel culture and the electric bike it rode in on. And then I get a giant cheer, and then I'm good to go because I've laid the foundation for the rest of the show.
That's awesome. What do you have against electric bikes? This is interesting.
Nothing.
Because the only reason
except
nothing.
You should be pedaling, and I don't mean you. That's the rhetorical
I got you.
An electric bike is like, really? You can't pedal?
The electric bike is the equivalent of somebody who lives with their parents till they're 40. You're not really making a commitment.
An electric bike is just a modern day moped. Let's be honest.
Yeah. That is a funny concept, by the way. Because I've seen them, and I think as a business I think that could be a big business.
It's huge. All my friends in LA have them.
Yeah.
I would feel silly sitting on a bike with pedals and not using them. I would feel ridiculous.
Yeah. But that's just, you're right. It's funny. Too much.
Is that the phrase, too much?
Yeah, too much.
Anxiety.
Yeah, it kills you.
I don't even understand people today. Anxiety is in some ways a decision. I don't know if you know this, but your physical response to excitement and anxiety are hormonally exactly the same. Your brain decides if you're excited about something or anxious about something. It's an intellectual decision. Your body releases the same chemicals.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, I've been suffering from things like this. I'll probably tell you after, but huge level of anxiety here. And suffering. My mom suffered from, we're dealing with a major life event that, and news that, it just, it's amazing. And then, because my mother was that way. She would get angry. Oh my God, like have to have answers, the what
That's what I'm saying. See, it's a learned behavior. Yeah. You're basically going along with, your mother was that way. So you learned that when something challenged you, that was the response, was to be I come from very anxious people too. Yeah. I had to train myself through hypnotherapy not to be an anxious person.
Well, maybe on the next show you can hypnotize me out of this shit.
I wish I could. Actually, I have the best hypnotherapist in LA though. And here's the weird thing. I tell people you can't take the pounds off until you take the weight off. When I worked on my anxiety, I lost weight, pounds, without ever being on a diet. Because I realized that I was a stress eater. And once I managed my anxiety, I organically lost weight.
Yeah. And your brain's freed up to do, to be more proactive, right? I mean, you replace a bad habit with a good habit. Yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
And our last word of our new segment called Let's Associate, big time.
Big time?
Big time.
Big time. New Year's Eve.
Yeah. Biggest day of the year.
Something special. Right? New things, a harbinger of things to come. Celebration, the Roaring 20s, Great Gatsby, big times.
See? The inaugural event of Let's Associate went off just awesome. Great stories there. Okay. Now, our final part of the segment. This is always fun. You used to know it as the news is a joke. That was too generic. Let's just say, lastly, did you hear? Have you heard?
Okay.
Have you heard many? NASA. This to me is great. This to me, you remember the movie Armageddon? Bruce Willis.
Sure, of course.
There's an asteroid coming. Everybody's like, oh my God, and so they have this idea to go up there and drill and all this shit. And meanwhile, there's a
Steve Buscemi
problem. Yeah, great. He flips out on the asteroid. He's all whacked out. He likes strippers, and who doesn't? Great movie. Well, NASA successfully altered the course of an asteroid recently with that DART program. We heard about it. That's the actual asteroid. we took it with the iPhone, and
Nice.
yeah, my iPhone's awesome. The new iPhone. Look at it.
Was it the new
They said,
iPhone 14?
yeah, and look at that amazing quality. And iPhones are saying they're not they're not supplying the new one as much. The people are buying the more expensive one. But nevertheless, thanks for the photo. Great photo. I went out right at the right time, and I got a great photo of
Yeah,
my iPhone.
you really caught it.
Yeah, and so they found out that they threw like a refrigerator. They jarred like this thing the size of a refrigerator from a NASA like rocket into the asteroid, and it actually changed its trajectory. Good to know.
Well, I mean, you threw it off course. That the whole everything in life is about trajectory, and I use it in terms of human beings. I always say if you change one small habit or something you do in your life, just something small, you would be surprised over the course of your life how the changing of that thing can change everything.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? One little it's like decisions. Like I always learned growing up, it's not how smart we are; it's how good of decisions we make. But secondarily to that, how we handle the consequences of those decisions. Um,
Absolutely, I back you on that. Amen.
you know what I mean? And people are like, "What do you mean?" Like I know people that will make a decision, and all they do all day is spend their time wondering what they did was right or wrong, and trying to answer whether it was
Well,
right or
second
wrong.
guessing yourself will kill you.
Yeah, yeah. No, by the way, this is a new segment of it. It's called the Tony Robbins moment. No, listen. Let me tell you something. People need this shit because the more I'm out there in public, I'm reading people that are like, "Wow, you folks, you need to do something." And here's a story. You know that the members of the BTS. I'm not a big pop star guy, but the South Korean band BTS.
I don't know
Um,
BTS, but I do understand that they like K-pop. I know about K-pop.
K-pop. Okay. See, I don't know them. Obviously, they're not on my iPod. They're not in my music library. But
No,
the South Korean army is saying, "Hey, you got to spend some time with us." And their agent says that we hope they'll be back in 2028. So or 25 or
28.
who knows. 28. I
Oh,
think they said 28.
all of their testicles will have dropped and their voices will have changed. Like
Yeah.
they're perishable goods.
So you don't think this boy band when they can't come back as a man band, you know what I mean?
No such thing.
Uh I don't think so. Well, listen, those kids are still coming out. Kids in the blocks, they're in their 50s now and they're still touring.
Well, but see, but the thing about NKOTB is that now it's about nostalgia. It's not that they're putting out good music or people like them. It's about
Right.
45-year-old housewives trying to get revved up.
Yeah.
Does that make me sound
Yeah.
like a mean person?
No, I think some people got excited hearing that, just knowing that housewives can get revved up.
Oh, they
It's
can.
just, and it all it takes is a concert. Listen, I know, I
Dude, I
the
went
one of
to
the
a Rick Springfield concert because I know his manager and I love Rick. And I went to see Rick
yeah,
Springfield a few years ago. And there were a bunch of women in their late 40s and 50s, and they were all moist as a bunt cake. Like they probably tore their
wow.
husbands up when they got home.
Yeah, I've given this advice to my fellow men. I said, listen, if you want to meet women, take an acting class. Number one. Number two, if you can't help, you want to take yoga, start going to yoga classes. You'll meet all kinds of people. And the last one is if you really want to impress a woman, take her to a concert. Take her to a live music event. I
Amen.
can't
We
I
love it.
can't tell you how much romance I had in the back seat. Santana. I took a girl I met in college to a Santana concert. We didn't make it home. We didn't make it
That's a
home,
panty
everybody.
dropper.
Yeah,
Santana is a panty dropper.
she told me to pull over, Monique. She says, "We try pull over." I'm like, "Okay," you know what I mean? I
That's
bought
what
all his
Black Magic
albums.
Woman will do to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yee. All right. Did you know? Well, they're gonna do that. No, I said this to somebody recently because Germany was talking about bringing it back, which is scary. But do you think one of the things that can help the youth of our country in this country's stability is maybe when someone reaches the age of 16, 18, they got to enter for 2 years in military service?
You know, I mean, it kind of goes against the tenets of being, the land of the free, but there is
Mhm.
something to be said for organization. There is something to be said for leadership. And I've done a lot of USO tours. There's a lot to be said for discipline and
Yeah,
structure. And unfortunately, a lot of parents now don't want to be parents. They want to be their kid's friend, and
yeah.
it's creating a whole bunch of people that really don't know how to get out of bed in the morning and make their own bed and fry a pair of eggs and put their pants on and get on with their lives.
Yeah, but they do know how to complain about everybody else and judge everybody else what they're doing. That's the
Yeah,
funny part,
well,
I
true
would think.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, great story here. A 140-year-old pair of Levi jeans was found in a mine shaft. And oddly enough, there was a little bag of cocaine in that little pocket right there in the front.
I'm not surprised it was legal back then.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God, who hasn't left that in their pocket and their wives find it later? I don't. It wasn't mine. Um, yeah, that's pretty impressive. I'm sure they don't fit anybody though.
Well, a
Um,
skinny miner.
what are you, Kevin Spacey? Um, he didn't he just get didn't he get just go to jail? Didn't they just find him guilty, Kevin Spacey? Didn't I just read something about him?
I haven't looked up any specific Kevin Spacey news, but
Yeah, yeah,
it's the news forecast for Kevin Spacey is bad for a long time.
yeah, yeah. It's like Harvey Weinstein, whatever his name. They show him. He came up in the news recently too, and you're like, we're still parading this poor guy around. Can you just let him go and put him in the shade? And who cares? Uh, it's
Well,
like when I love
I
when new.
hear he's a gross human being who used his power to rape women and
Yeah.
ruin their careers. So, quite frankly, if they do want to parade him around with a ring through his nose, I'm all for it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. And matter of fact, in the Webster's dictionary, when they have like dirtbag, they should just put a photo of him, right? You know what I mean? He could be
Agreed.
qualified, right? Like, no one else is really a dirtbag. He's a dirtbag. Um,
Monster.
this is interesting. I lived, dated, and had sex in a van for 4 years. The members of the members of Scooby Doo finally come out, and yeah, here are the 6 questions people always ask me.
I like how that made the news because that's pretty much everybody in Humboldt County, California. Like, how did this one person end up making the news?
Yeah, right. Well, because she has a friend in the business. That's how it usually
It
works.
had to be.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I'm trying to get to the questions. I was talking about this to a buddy of mine because I have some comic friends that are doing that now. They're doing it with these little sprinters, or they're doing it with like a buddy of mine who travels in a homemade van with bed and all kinds of stuff and solar
A lot of people
paneling and
do since COVID.
yeah. All right, let's see what some of these questions are. Okay, here we go. Cute girl, imagine she would have sex. Is sex different in such a small place? You
No,
think sex is
most people just
no?
have sex on beds. How big is a king bed?
Well, again, I'm associating back to my days in high school where I had sex in the back seat of a car. That was a place,
Who didn't?
right? Right. Well, let's share some knowledge. Let's share a little. Let's associate again, okay, Monique. So
Okay,
living in
sure.
South, being a thanks, man. So being in Florida, people are like my youngins, like, and I'm mentoring and stuff. My nephews and stuff, like Uncle Dougie. When you couldn't find a place, where would you go? I'd say a baseball dugout, like at a park.
Oh, I once just was on a field. I mean, it was late at night. There was nobody around. I mean, I didn't have to deal with the dugout. Like, I think we were just on a very nice patch of grass on the field.
Yeah, that's probably a better idea. I was probably just I wanted shelter. I wanted to feel like I was
Yeah.
sheltered, I guess. A lifeguard stand. You ever have sex in a lifeguard stand?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, right. Great place if you live by the beach. You know,
Yeah.
tonight on South Florida coastlines, there's going to be a bunch of people having sex in the lifeguard stands, and it's all going to be because of this show.
Because of
Um,
you.
that's right. What did you learn from having sex in a van?
Are you
You can't
asking me
stretch
or
your
is
legs
that a
out.
rhetorical question?
Well, unless you've had sex in a van. Have you had sex in
I
a van?
could take the fifth on that.
Okay, yeah. I'm trying to think if I've had sex in a van.
I don't think I
Um,
honestly. I don't think I have.
she mentions things that baby wipes are important. You know, some positions like cowgirl are less feasible. There's certain positions you can't do. It's an interesting article. What's it like living in such close quarters with your partner? Well, who hasn't been through COVID?
Right.
There's only so
Close
much I want to
quarters
see
is
of
a state of
somebody.
mind.
Yeah, that would be a little tough to live with. I mean, if I was doing it myself, it'd be fine. I could chill. I could go to a park, walk around. Uh, how does the relationship change when two people live in different vans? Hmm.
I think that's a whole different ball game when you start talking about co-vans. Then that's you're no longer having the van conversation.
Well, to me, if I'm dating somebody in another van, we're definitely going to spend more time in the van that has a toilet, if there is one. A fridge. There's going to be, I imagine the difference between each van. They would set some
Well, now you're
precedents.
talking about class, and you're talking about socioeconomic standing, like who has the nicer van. It's like who lives in
Yeah,
the better neighborhood.
yeah. And pretty soon, next thing you know, when you're dating somebody like that, you start having conversations like, "You think it's time for me to get rid of my van?" Um,
Yeah, I think you always have it parked because you just never know when you're going to have to go back to it.
Yeah, that's a good advice, Monique. You never want to just get rid of your van with the first chick you
Mm-mm.
meet or guy you meet that
No,
lives in another van.
no, that's an
What
amateur
about when
move.
you what yeah, what about when you live in a house and your partner lives on the road?
Now,
Well,
now here's a big question because this is absolutely true. I dated a guy in LA for a long time that lived on a sailboat in Marina del Rey. And it wasn't a huge sailboat. It was nice, but it wasn't huge. It
right.
was, a sailboat. It wasn't a liveaboard. And I had a nice apartment. And over time, he kind of put the creep on my apartment. Like he just kept bringing stuff over and staying for longer periods
Yeah.
of time. And then we ended up getting in an argument. And I said, I think you need to go home. And he's like, what do you mean? This is my home. I'm like, oh, no, it's not. The
Oop.
sailboat is your home. This is my home that I've let you kind of crash for long
Yeah.
periods of time.
Look here, Popeye, I'm no olive oil.
No,
Um
I told him, I said, you need to pack up and, go get on the boat.
That's fucking great. Starts making his way in. I hope she doesn't notice I brought my new
Oh no, he
sneakers
was
over
putting the
here.
creep, and I wouldn't let him ever put anything in the closet or the drawer. So I just had like this nice stack of duffel bags in the corner. And little by little, I could see he kept trying to put stuff out of the duffel bag, and I kept like putting like I'd do his laundry and put it back in the bag. I wouldn't let it even sit on the table because I'm not stupid. I could see the creep happening.
There you go. That's funny. Speaking of creep, somebody thought this was creepy. A nursing home hires a stripper to entertain their seniors in wheelchairs, and I'm sure it wasn't the men in the senior home that were complaining. I could tell you that.
Well, they might have been only because it's a little bit cruel. You can't really do a lap dance in a wheelchair because the arms are very restrictive. You know what I
Well,
mean?
they
Unless you're in one of those that's just like the chair without the arms.
these young ladies. This happened in I think it was in either Thailand or Vietnam somewhere. Um, they were figuring a way. These girls were
Well, here's
very
the thing. If you say this is in like Thailand or Vietnam, then all bets are off because number one, they're very small women. And number
yeah.
two, they could very well be nurses and strippers. Like there's not the delineations of profession there the way we have here.
It's funny you should say that. I've seen many strippers who turned out to be nurses, and I've also seen many nurses who have turned out to be strippers. So,
Well, those student
y-
loans are a bitch, Dougie.
I got to tell you, here's the thing: it's at a retirement home in Taiwan Veterans Home, a government-run facility where retired soldiers from Taiwan. Sorry, it's in
Then
Taiwan.
by all means, who
Compensated
cares?
adult performers for sensual performances, and we know what that means. To
Well, no,
commemorate
but
Mid
I
Autumn
think
Festival.
stripper now is probably becoming, code for happy endings being doled out all over the place.
Well, in this, I wish we had the video. I don't know, we should have queued up. So we should have had the video. Ben, we don't have the video linked up in this thing, do we?
Did you see the
All right.
video?
Yeah, they're basically stripper girls, and they are wearing masks, and they're getting on top of the guys, and and the girls on the ground with their legs apart doing that thing. Look at me, it's pretty exciting. Um, yeah,
I think that's nice.
I think it is. I don't know why. It's probably somebody got again. It was probably a woman who got mad.
I'm not gonna argue with you. You're probably
It was
right.
probably one of the women. Listen. I'm like a Sherlock Holmes when it comes to this kind of shit. Okay, here's
Well,
what happened.
evidently you're very well versed in the stripperverse.
Yeah, $30,000 one year I spent in strip clubs. I've done my fundamental research. I was kicking the tires. Trust me, I was kicking the tires. Um, you know, uh, so here's what happened. One of the nurses is clearly banging one of these guys. All right, one of the nurses is performing this type of favor on the down low. She flips out when she sees the guy now going to this other girl who's professionally more, proficient in her abilities. She flips out. She writes a letter. Next thing you know, these poor guys now are watching old clips of the Golden Girls instead of having strippers at the fucking nursing home.
Yeah, they're not even getting Murder She Wrote, which is the gold standard.
Yeah. This poor guy. Did you know? Have you heard? A young man became allergic to orgasms. True medical issue. This kid would, at the age of 18, realize every time he he got flu-like symptoms for days.
So I get spots when I
So
eat mangoes, but I eat them anyway.
okay, but this is a little different, where a young 18-year-old man is trying to find his, you know, and every time he does, he turns into like Captain COVID.
I think it's psychological. I think it's just guilt.
No, it's actually it's called post-orgasmic illness syndrome. It's actually diagnosed, and
Doesn't mean it's
they had no.
real.
Well, they had it. Yeah, they had all these different things. They had no cure for it, but somebody used their head and they used over the counter antihistamine, and had him take it, and eventually helped him, you know, calm
His
his
symptoms.
cold issues. Because that would be, every time you. That's like the worst feeling in the world. Every time you have an orgasm, next thing you know, you're like, it may
Yeah.
stop some people. It may stop some people, So, hey, I'm sorry, honey, I can't tonight. I don't know. Man caught on. This is a great story. I love. Man caught on video urinating on ex-wife's grave almost every morning back in New Jersey. This guy was dedicated.
Well, to quote it, one of my favorite lines in Hamilton: "Everything is legal in New Jersey."
Exactly. This guy, this guy sets the alarm, gets the coffee. Time to fucking go and piss on that bitch's grave. Now, the guy had reasons. It turns out he had a baby with this woman. They were married early in life and they separated, but he married this woman and claimed the baby was not his. And it turned out decades later that it was his child. So he was a little pissed at her. Yeah. The son of the mother was like pissed because they'd find bags of shit right next to the tombstone. And so he wasn't just pissing; he was actually using this. But you're right. This is what happens in Jersey.
Not only that, but you know what? Whatever gets him through the night. Like, it's not like it's bothering her.
But that's the thing. It's every day.
She's not
You know what I
there.
mean? Yeah. It's almost like she's still winning every time he gets up in the morning and changes his day to do this. I don't know where she's looking from, but she's basically looking at him going, here he goes again, thinking he
Yeah.
matters. He's still trying to fucking get on my number, become part of my mind.
Yeah. She's probably laughing.
What do you think is like one of the weirdest, like, I don't know, weirdest, but like the most like a deal breaker kind of thing for you when it comes to when men with their personality type thing like that, Like you
I
mentioned sneaky and shit like that, and people not they're obviously lying. Those are pretty obvious. But
right.
what's like
You
one
know
of the
what's
weird ones?
strange? I I used to have a ton of deal breakers when I was younger because of my own insecurities. And to me, it's kind of like equal. Like, I don't like when men expect there to be an imbalance. Like, okay, if you want to be like all open and cool and go do what you do, and I'll see you on Tuesday, okay. But just don't be all over me if I don't answer your calls over the weekend. Like, if you're busy, I
Yeah,
get to be busy. Because what I found is that most people, Dougie, that claim that, hey, dude, I'm going to be like this and nobody's going to tell me what to do, are the people that want to tell everyone else what to do.
yeah, yeah. Me protest too much. Isn't that Shakespearean
Yeah,
or
I've
something?
always found that people that are super suspicious or think you're up to something are always the ones that are up to something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Every
The, ge- and,
super jealous boyfriend I ever had was a cheater.
and you know why? It's because that's their norm. They live in that norm. They think in that pattern. The association, is familiarity. So they gravitate to
Yeah,
that. So they think you're doing the same thing.
that's
Uh,
right.
you know, it's crazy. And you're right. And I remember when I was a young man and I recognized that, and like I would sense that right off the bat. It'd be like I'm done, and then I never felt this is the you talk about moments. That was the time I felt the most powerful when I told a beautiful woman, "We're done. We're done. Can't
Well,
take it anymore."
because you realized you weren't being held prisoner by something that wasn't really the big picture value, which is like, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying this to brag or anything, but because of what I do and how I do it, I get hit on even to this day by men that most women would consider, very desirable or attractive, or, whether it's because they're young or they're good looking, whatever it is. And those things have no power over me. I had a guy
Yeah,
one time ask me, he goes, what do I have to do to get with you? And I said, there's nothing you can do to be with me. You have to be something, and you have to already have been it before you met me.
yeah,
And he totally,
yeah,
like, that just baked his noodle.
yeah. It's kind of like when we were kids playing kickball on the street, and somebody would drive up to us and go, "Hey, hey kid, can you tell me where fourth court is?" I'm like, "Hey, you can't get there from here. You got to go
Yeah,
back to where you started." And our
yeah.
last story of the day, our last story of the day. This is great. We all know the terror, the horrible things that are happening in Ukraine and Russia and the attack. But 15,000 Ukrainians will decide to have a mass orgy if Russia deploys nuclear weapons, which makes me say, "Hey, is that nuclear waste on my back?" Um,
I,
that's
I
the
think
joke.
that's being very proactive and deciding, I'm going to shrug my shoulders and control what I can, which is if I'm going out, I'm literally going out with a bang.
That's right. Several bangs, hopefully. You know what I mean? And that comes down to it. Like if there was an asteroid and they couldn't deflect it, and they told us we got 24 hours before the thing's just going to completely demolish the Earth, what else are you going to do? I mean, I got 24 hours. I'm gonna order a pizza, a cheesesteak, some fucking wings, some chicken parm, some veal. I'm gonna just order. I'm just gonna make a lot of food, and then I'm gonna make love, and then every time I get done making love, I'm gonna eat. Like usually 2 minutes later, then they'll go back and eat
You'll
another
have a lot
fucking
of
dish.
time to chew, evidently.
Exactly. Um, and I guess at the end of our show here, what would you do if, God forbid, we had 24 hours, and Monique said, "This is what I'm going to do."
You know what's interesting? I think I would do what I do in my life. Like, I would call my mom and tell her I love her, and I'd be sorry if I died away from my dog. Like, if it was now, I wouldn't be able to get back to LA in time to see Nola, my dog. And I think I would, notwithstanding, like, I don't have anybody to bang, in the proximity if I'm in South Florida. I mean, if I'm in LA, I live in a nice building. I could just be all over the place. There's tons of people to bang in my apartment complex.
Wow.
It's a regular Melrose Place. But if it happened here, I think I would just be funny. I would just stand on a corner and tell jokes, and whoever's
Oh yeah.
afraid and doesn't have anybody to bang can just come see me do my, I do a tight 23.
Yeah, that's funny. For those of you who don't have somebody to fuck, come to tonight's comedy show on the corner of
Yeah,
18th and Walnut.
that's
That's
right.
awesome. That's great. Well, Monique, thanks so much for joining us today on the Wake Up Late with
My
Dougie
pleasure.
show. It's always great having you. And you have shows there in Florida you got coming up. You want to,
No, I'm here for
just
fun
hanging?
business reasons because I'm working on something I'll tell you about another day. But it's a bigger picture thing for people like you and I to be able to get our comedy to more people faster and keep all of the money we make doing it. And
Wow,
yeah, right. So I'm having
that's
some
awesome.
business meetings. I'm visiting family, and just I have a lot of ties and a lot of love down here.
Yeah, I hear you on that. And well, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my
And for
pleasure. Thanks
every,
for having me.
you're great. And if everybody at home, we want to thank you for watching us. Don't forget to follow us and subscribe to our YouTube channel because we need more subscribers. We want to change and use our own name, of course, and follow us on our social media on Instagram and stuff like that. Going to be hosting this weekend at the Greenville Comedy Zone for Michael Yo, I believe. Not sure he's bringing his own host, but I'm scheduled to be there if there's no host. So if you're in downtown Greenville, come out to the Greenville Comedy Zone. Either way, whether I'm there or not, go there. It's a great show if you're going to be there. I'm going to be at the Comedy Castle in Detroit area in Michigan, the 27th to the 29th, I think it is, or something like that. 3 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday at the Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle. Excited about that. God bless everybody. Take care. Stay well. And we'll have a great show next week with the winner of the World Series of Comedy, my good friend John Wynn, and fellow contestant and good friend Jim Barnes. Join us next week here at the same time. Take care.